Have you ever felt that heavy, hollow exhaustion after just, an hour of scrolling through your news feed? That feeling where the weight of the whole world's problems just sits right on your chest? Well, you are definitely not alone. We are constantly absorbing heavy, traumatic data points through our screens all day, and it's leading us straight into existential burnout. But what if we could actually replace that algorithmic despair with deliberate, structured action? Okay, let's dive into this.
In today's Explainer, we're taking a journey from some heavy existential philosophy straight into a highly actionable three-part daily routine. We'll hit mean world syndrome, a philosophy of defiance, and then walk through securing your armor in the morning, a midday micro-evidence check, dropping the boulder in the evening, and finally, changing the universe.
All right, let's kick things off with Section 1, Mean World Syndrome, or the Negativity Bias Trap.
Whether you're a frontline worker, someone dealing with frustrating systemic failures, or honestly, just someone paying attention to the news, you are constantly absorbing heavy data. And when your brain is fed a constant daily diet of tragedy, it does exactly what brains are wired to do. It concludes that the world is fundamentally broken and hostile. But to really understand why this happens, consider that nature itself is completely indifferent. Using the exact same physics, nature creates both the staggering beauty of a blooming rhododendron and a devastating landslide. It just is. So why do we almost exclusively see the landslide? Because our modern media algorithms have absolutely weaponized revolutionary negativity bias. Outrage and fear? They drive clicks. Clicks drive profit. The algorithm is actively hiding the rhododendron from you. And man, that relentless filtering leads us straight into mean world syndrome. That's the cognitive bias where we end up believing the world is far more dangerous and cruel than it actually is. If we just surrender our information streams to algorithms without building what the sources call a goodness portfolio as counter-evidence, we're going to fall right into nihilism and burnout.
Which brings us to our second section, a philosophy of defiance, and rejecting the whole everything happens for a reason mindset.
Now, I want to be super clear here. This isn't about toxic positivity. When you are sitting face-to-face with raw human suffering, hearing the platitude everything happens for a reason can honestly feel downright insulting, because bad things often happen for no good reason at all. But rejecting cosmic optimism doesn't mean you have to accept cosmic defeat. So the crucial point is, goodness isn't a pre-existing condition we're just waiting to discover, it's a deliberate defiance-driven creation. And this brilliantly illustrates exactly what I mean. Take a look at this balance sheet mapping global evidence of defiance. We've got massive, monumental challenges like environmental degradation and climate inaction. But solutions journalism shows us the human response. We see Australia establishing massive national parks to protect koala habitats, or a Dutch court actually halting commercial fishing to let marine ecosystems recover. The steady, quiet work of fixing the world is happening simultaneously. We just have to choose to look for it.
Okay, let's transition from abstract philosophy directly into the actual defiance blueprint, starting with Section 3, Securing the Armor in the Morning.
Listen, before you step out into the world and face that daily fire hose at trauma, you must aggressively inject counter-evidence into your brain. Here are your 2 morning steps. Step 1 is the 10-minute data buffer. Before you even think about opening your email or social media, open a dedicated solutions journalism source. Places like Future Crunch or Reasons to be Cheerful, and read exactly 2 articles about human progress. Step 2 is the mindset lock. You need to consciously set a boundary. Tell yourself, the suffering I encounter today is real, but it is not the whole truth. You are anchoring yourself before the algorithm even tries to shake you.
Next, we move to Section 4, the micro-evidence check. This is your midday circuit breaker.
Imagine you're deep into your day. The news feed is getting loud, or maybe institutional red tape is making you feel totally suffocated. You need an immediate circuit breaker. To break that loop, implement these 2 steps. First, the solidarity audit. Take literally 60 seconds to write down one piece of micro-evidence of human courage or defiance around you. Did a colleague offer some genuine warmth? Write it down. Second, the creator shift. Step away for 5 minutes and ground yourself by observing something complex and beautifully organized. It could be a robust line of code or a literal plant outside your window. Remind yourself that order can and is forged out of chaos.
As the day winds down, we enter Section 5, Dropping the Boulder, your evening routine. When you log off, the triage work has to end. This is a vital moment. You must consciously close the pipeline, because if you don't intentionally put the weight down, that dark night of the soul will absolutely consume your evening. You drop the boulder using these steps. First, a physical transition ritual. Wash your hands or change your clothes the very minute you get home. It sounds so simple, but it marks a firm psychological boundary. Then, engage in creative outwork. Spend time on an unmediated personal project where you have total agency. Build something, write a story, bake some bread. Use your hands and your mind to create pure order, proving to yourself that your power to build exists completely independently of your daily grind.
Finally, we arrive at Section 6, Changing the Universe.
This is where we shift from emergency triage to deliberate cultivation. We're talking about the ultimate act of defiance against a heavy world. Think about a practice like laughter yoga, where people intentionally trigger laughter collectively. It doesn't wait around for the world to fix itself. It forces joy into existence through the physical body first. Now, what's really interesting about this slide is its connection to the philosopher Albert Camus. He used the myth of Sisyphus, a guy condemned to push a boulder up a hill for eternity, only to watch it roll right back down, as the ultimate metaphor for our struggle. But the source material asks us to imagine Sisyphus laughing. Just think about that for a second. Choosing to roar with laughter while walking back down that hill is an act of pure, terrifying independence. Sisyphus tells the void, hey, you can control the weight of the stone, but you cannot dictate the weather inside my chest.
Which brings us to this brilliant piece of logic. I can't change the universe, but I can change my internal state, and in so doing, I end up changing the universe because I am a part of it. You are not just some isolated observer watching a terrible play. You are a node woven directly into the complexity of the cosmos. By forcing a chaotic, indifferent universe to host a little pocket of deliberate joy and resilience, you have successfully corrupted its cold code with human warmth, and that is incredible.
And that leaves us with this final, powerful question. Look, the algorithms are always going to try to show you the landslide. The boulder is always going to be heavy. But you now have the daily blueprint to fight back. So how will you shift the climate in your own chest today? I want to empower you to step away from the screen, implement your morning, midday, and evening routines, and outwork the emptiness. Build up that goodness portfolio and roll on laughing. Catch you next time.
So take a second and think about the last time you checked the news on your phone. Like, how long did it actually take for your chest to physically tighten?
Oh, yeah. Usually like, 5 seconds? 10.
Right. It's instantaneous. We've all been sold this lie that, consuming more data automatically makes us better, more responsible citizens.
Right, like if you're not constantly plugged in, you're ignorant.
Exactly. But what happens when that data is just, a live, uncurated feed of global despair?
You just hit a wall. You hit this massive wall of existential overload.
Hmm.
I mean, we treat information like currency, right? Assuming more of it makes us wealthier in our understanding.
Yeah.
But when the human nervous system is subjected to just a constant barrage of systemic failure, environmental collapse, and tragedy, that equation completely breaks down.
It just paralyzes people, especially, I think, people who genuinely care about the state of the world, which is actually the perfect launching pad for our deep dive today. I'm your host, and as always, I'm joined by a resident expert. And today, we are looking at a really profound exchange between an AI and an employment facilitator.
Yeah, and this facilitator is someone working at a work BC office, so they're literally sitting right on the front lines of human struggle.
Right, acting as a triage worker for people who are, falling through the cracks of a totally broken system.
Exactly. They're absorbing the absolute worst of bureaucratic nightmares, personal tragedy, and honestly, just sheer bad luck, like 8 hours a day.
So our mission today is to take their insights and figure out how to fight this modern plague of existential burnout. We're going to explore why our brains are hardwired to basically betray us with negativity.
Which is a huge part of it.
And why the popular instinct of toxic positivity is a terrible coping mechanism. Plus, we'll look at how to construct what the sources call a goodness portfolio, using empirical evidence and rebellious joy.
I love that term. And the concept of the goodness portfolio actually stems directly from the facilitator's day job.
Oh, really? How so?
Well, they spend their time teaching clients the core principles of cognitive behavioral therapy, or CBT.
Right.
When a client comes into that office, their brain is often feeding them absolute lies. Things like, you have no skills, nobody wants to hire you, you are a fundamental failure.
Okay, let's unpack this. How does the facilitator use the CDT framework to actually break that specific loop?
By demanding empirical evidence, you fight the brain's internal smear campaign by forcing it to look at documented proof of past successes.
Like finding a time they solved a problem or a skill they mastered.
Exactly. A moment of resilience. You build a literal portfolio of competence. And the brilliant pivot in our source material is the facilitator realizing that, they need the exact same thing for themselves.
Wait, because their brain is attacking them too.
Right, but not about their professional competence. It's aggressively attacking their optimism about humanity.
Oh, wow. Because if you sit in a chair all day absorbing stories of structural inequality, your brain is going to do exactly what a brain is designed to do, right?
It takes that data, builds a pattern, and concludes that the world is just fundamentally hostile.
And we all have this vulnerability, don't we? Like, due to our evolutionary history, the whole negativity bias thing is just hardwired into us.
It really is.
Yeah.
I mean, think about the ancient human walking through the savannah. The human who was hyper-focused on a sudden rustle in the bushes survived, right? Because they assumed it was a predator.
Yeah, better safe than eaten.
Exactly. The human who was distracted, admiring the complex beauty of a wildflower, got eaten.
So are we basically running software designed for the Stone Age, but we're just plugged into a 247 doom-scrolling matrix?
That captures the modern dilemma perfectly.
Yeah.
I mean, algorithms have completely weaponized our survival instincts for ad revenue.
Right, because fear and outrage just drive so much engagement.
Exactly. So the platform just feeds you the rustling bushes over and over again until you develop what's known as mean world syndrome.
Mean world syndrome. That's the psychological condition where you falsely believe the world is like 99% burning just because the smoke is all you're allowed to see, right?
Yeah, and the source material draws a brilliant parallel to nature here. Nature itself is completely indifferent.
How do you mean?
Well, the exact same physics and biological rules that create a devastating flesh-eating disease or a landslide, they also create a perfect rainbow or a blooming rhododendron.
Nature doesn't favor the disaster.
No, it doesn't. But the algorithm does. It literally hides the rhododendrons and presents this warped, statistically unrepresentative view of reality.
But, if the Matrix is constantly feeding us landslides, the human instinct is to just desperately search for a silver lining.
Right, the pendulum swings the other way.
Yeah, we see this everywhere. That massive cultural swing toward toxic positivity, the whole everything happens for a reason mindset. But the sources argue this is actually incredibly harmful.
It is. Sitting face-to-face with raw, unjustified human suffering and telling someone everything happens for a reason is honestly worse than unhelpful.
It's insulting.
It functions as a spiritual bypass. It retroactively justifies their trauma, wrapping it up in a neat little bow of cosmic destiny.
Right. It implies that the universe intentionally inflicted pain on them to teach them some sort of lesson.
Exactly. And the facilitator in our sources completely refuses to use that security blanket. They operate without the assumption that the historical arc automatically bends toward justice.
Because living without that cosmic guarantee means actually standing in the cold reality of pain. It means accepting that a lot of bad things happen simply because of bad luck.
Or because a system is fundamentally broken.
Right. If the arc of the moral universe bends toward justice at all, it's only because flawed, exhausted people are physically dragging it that way by hand.
By hand, yes.
But wait, hold on. Here's where it gets really interesting to me. Because isn't this actually a really bleak way to look at the world?
What do you mean?
Like, if there's no cosmic safety net, if the universe is completely indifferent, aren't we just completely staring into the void?
Well, it definitely feels bleak initially, but the sources actually frame this realization as deeply empowering.
Empowering? How?
If there is no inherent script making everything good in the end, it means goodness isn't some pre-existing condition we can just passively wait for. Goodness has to be a deliberate, defiance-driven creation.
Defiance-driven. I like that.
Yeah. When a client walks into that employment office with a tragic story, the universe isn't teaching them a lesson. But when that facilitator sits with them, refuses to look away, and helps them navigate a hostile bureaucracy.
They are performing an act of pure rebellion.
Exactly. They are actively injecting empathy and order into a space where the universe just left a void.
So, if we accept that the universe isn't going to save us, it places the burden of proof entirely on our shoulders. We essentially have to become defense attorneys for humanity.
Right, which means gathering actual evidence.
So how do we actually build this goodness portfolio every single day?
Well, it requires changing the entire mechanism of how we consume information. Traditional journalism operates on the premise that the disaster is the rule. Like, good news is no news.
So what's the alternative?
The sources suggest heavily leaning into solutions journalism.
Okay, solutions journalism, which applies the same, hardcore investigative grit to how people are fixing problems as traditional news does to what's broken, right? It's not just feel-good fluff.
Oh, far from it.
Yeah.
It explores the grueling mechanics of progress. There's a great example from the sources about a Dutch court recently halting commercial fishing in marine protected areas.
Traditional news would probably just cover the initial environmental degradation, right?
Exactly. But solutions journalism covers the years of litigation. It shows how local activists compiled granular marine data, fought massive corporate lawyers, navigated endless bureaucratic delays, and finally forced a systemic change to let the ecosystems recover.
So it's proof of the how. It shows you exactly how people are out there dragging the arc of justice by hand.
Yes. And to help us capture this kind of evidence, the sources map out a very specific daily defiance blueprint.
Oh, let's walk through that blueprint, starting with the morning, I assume.
Right. It begins with the morning influx. Before you check your email, before you look at standard news algorithms, you establish a 10-minute data buffer.
So you anchor your brain's baseline with curated sources, like David Byrne's Reasons to be Cheerful or the Progress Network.
Yeah, exactly. You aggressively inject counter-evidence of human progress before your daily triage even begins.
Okay, I love that. And then we hit midday, the capture phase.
Yeah, this involves two specific tools, the solidarity audit and the creator shift.
Right, so the solidarity audit is just taking 60 seconds to write down one piece of microevidence of human defiance, right? Like a client's courage to show up or a colleague's kindness.
Yep, just capturing that local proof.
But the creator shift is fascinating to me. The source suggests looking at a complex line of code or a literal plant on your desk. So what does this all mean for you, the listener? Is physically looking at a plant actually going to stop existential dread, or is that just, a placebo?
It's not a placebo at all. It's an actual neurological circuit breaker.
Really? How does that work?
Well, when you are drowning in institutional red tape, your brain's threat response system is firing constantly. Cortisol makes you hyper-fixate on the chaos.
Or you can't see past the emergency.
But looking at the fractal patterns of a fern leaf, or the clean logic of a robust line of code, forces your visual cortex to process order.
Oh, wow. So it signals your parasympathetic nervous system that you are not in immediate physical danger.
Exactly. It proves to your brain that structured logic still exists in the world.
That is so practical. And finally, the evening release. This is about establishing a transition ritual, right? Like physically washing your hands or changing your clothes the second you walk through the door.
Followed by some form of personal creative work. Establishing a psychological boundary line is vital.
Because when you act as a lightning rod for trauma, your brain blurs the lines between your job and your inherent existence.
Right. Washing your hands isn't just about hygiene. It's a physical signal to your nervous system that the emergency triage phase of your day is officially over.
Which makes total sense because, you can't survive in emergency mode forever. Eventually, the job ends.
And that transition brings up a really compelling paradox in the source material. The facilitator actually expresses a deep, looming dread about retirement.
Dread about retiring, that's the ultimate existential tightrope, isn't it? Being on the front lines of human struggle drains you completely, but it is also the very pipeline for your meaning.
It is. It gives you a structured, daily opportunity to actively push back against the darkness. When you retire, that formal pipeline closes.
So you lose the structure of your rebellion. How do you keep from drowning in the background radiation of the void when you no longer have a designated battleground?
The sources answer this by bringing in the philosopher Albert Camus, specifically his essay on the myth of Sisyphus.
Ah, Sisyphus. The guy condemned by the gods to push a massive boulder up a hill for eternity, only to watch it roll back down every single time he reaches the top.
That's the one. He is basically the poster child for the human condition in an indifferent universe.
Pushing a rock of systemic failure up a hill of bureaucracy.
Exactly. But Camus argued that the void says the boulder is meaningless. The system says the boulder is meaningless. But Sisyphus is superior to his rock because he possesses consciousness.
Right. He knows the struggle is absurd and he chooses to push it anyway.
Yes. The rebellion isn't in successfully keeping the rock at the top. The rebellion is in the choosing.
So he's fighting cosmic meaninglessness with local meaning. Like the void might be vast and cold, but the room you are standing in is warm and immediate.
Exactly.
The void might win on a galactic scale, but in that micro moment inside your four walls, you win. You look at the void and say, not here, not today.
And applying that to retirement changes the entire paradigm. Retiring isn't retreating from humanity. It's a transition from emergency response to deliberate cultivation.
Deliberate cultivation. I like that. So right now, the facilitator is doing triage. They're subjected to a forced intake of trauma. In retirement, they become the gardener.
Yes.
Yeah.
It's like moving from playing defense in an emergency room you don't control to playing offense in a community garden that you do control.
You step away from fighting bureaucratic constraints and engage in pure solidarity. You build local frameworks that bypass the broken systems entirely, right? Like tool libraries, seed swaps, unmediated mutual aid.
Exactly. You find the people who are quietly planting the rhododendrons in your neighborhood, and you say, hey, I have some free time, let me help you dig the dirt.
You keep pushing the boulder, but you finally get to choose the hill.
Beautifully put.
And that brings us to the final and honestly easily the most surprising part of this deep dive. Because the community garden is a beautiful concept, but the facilitator has a very specific side hustle that they claim they will do until their dying breath.
Oh, yes. Laughter yoga.
The laughter yoga, which is framed in the sources as pure, unadulterated existential defiance. But wait, are they literally just standing in a room forcing themselves to laugh out loud?
Pretty much, yeah.
Because scientifically, the human brain can't easily tell the difference between fake laughter and real laughter in terms of endorphin release. So is that the biological loophole they're exploiting here?
They're absolutely exploiting that loophole, and they are doing it loudly.
Yeah.
I mean, it sounds absurd, and its absurdity is the actual source of its power.
Wow.
You are taking a biological mechanism designed for joy, and you are choosing to trigger it intentionally in a world that gives you every reason to weep.
So you aren't passively waiting for the world to fix itself before you allow joy to happen. You force the joy into existence through the physical body first.
Yes. And the text connects this practice right back to Camus with this really striking phrase, imagine Sisyphus laughing.
Imagine Sisyphus laughing. Picture the gods looking down, expecting tears, exhaustion, and despair from this infinite punishment.
But as the boulder rolls away, Sisyphus just stands at the peak, throws his head back, and starts to laugh. A roaring, full-bellied laugh.
It instantly strips the universe of its power over him.
It does. The text says you can control the hill, and you can control the weight of the stone, but you cannot dictate the weather inside my chest.
Oh man, I love that. You cannot dictate the weather inside my chest. So you aren't ignoring the landslide. You're just realizing that your internal state is a physical variable in the universe's equation.
Exactly. If you change your temperature, the total temperature of the universe technically has to change.
Right. That is the quantum systems theory argument presented in the sources. The facilitator realizes, I can't change the entire universe, but I can change my internal state.
And because I am a localized piece of the universe, I end up changing the universe.
Like a glass of water. If you alter the temperature of just one single molecule in that glass, the temperature of the entire glass changes. By definition, it has to.
You are a knot of matter and consciousness woven directly into the fabric of reality.
So when you choose joy, you are forcing a chaotic cosmos to host a pocket of deliberate warmth. You successfully corrupt its cold code.
The void insists that nothing matters. But your internal shift insists that you matter, the person next to you matters, and the room you are in matters.
And because you are a fraction of the universe just lost its own argument.
It's so profound. And the sources immortalize this concept through a series of poems. There's The Liturgy of the Rhododendron and The Quantum of Defiance.
But the standout one is The Third Push, right? Which contains this incredible line about Sisyphus. Happiness waits for the hill to flatten, lightness pushes anyway.
Yes. The secret they don't carve into marble is that when you laugh, the boulder actually weighs less.
Making the boulder lighter for yourself and for everyone else sharing the hill with you, that is the ultimate goal.
It really is.
Well, let's step back and look at the whole picture we've mapped out today for you, the listener. We started by diagnosing the core problem, right? Recognizing that our evolutionary software has a negativity bias.
And that algorithms are actively exploiting it to induce mean world syndrome.
Exactly. We dismantled the empty comfort of toxic positivity, accepting that goodness isn't a cosmic guarantee, but a deliberate creation forged in the face of an indifferent universe.
We explored the mechanics of building a goodness portfolio. Not just passively hoping for good news, but aggressively curating counter-evidence through solutions journalism.
Setting that morning data buffer and using the creator shift, looking at a plant or some code to break our cortisol loops.
Right, and we navigated the existential transition of retirement, shifting from forced triage and broken fistum to deliberate cultivation in local communities.
And finally, we uncovered the biological loophole of laughter yoga, realizing that by dictating the weather in our own chests, we become the warmed molecule that fundamentally alters the glass of water.
It requires a daily conscious choice. You are either absorbing the background radiation of the void, or you are actively planting the rhododendron.
So we have to ask you directly, what does your goodness portfolio look like right now? Are you letting an algorithm dictate your internal weather, or are you acting like Sisyphus, laughing at the boulder?
Finding the evidence of human defiance takes a lot of work. But honestly, it is the only way to build a worldview that can actually sustain you.
Which leads to a final thought I want to leave you with, building on that quantum systems theory we just talked about. If deliberately changing our internal state to joy fundamentally alters the fabric of the universe for the better, what is the unseen ripple effect of the passive, unexamined cynicism we carry around with us every single day?
Oh. If rebellious joy warms the glass of water, unchecked cynicism surely freezes it.
Think about that the next time your chest tightens looking at your phone. Remember, we've been conditioned to treat information like an X-ray, expecting a clear, clinical picture of the world. But when that X-ray only focuses on the fractures and the broken bones of society, you have to remember to look up from the light box.
Look around the room.
Exactly. You have to remember to look around the room for the healers who are quietly setting those bones. And maybe, just maybe, share a defiant laugh in the waiting room. Keep pushing, keep laughing.